Hey Soroush, while we were doing this video with both of us, with the interview about AML challenges related to UK, Gibraltar, related to the current issues, we discussed many things, but we kind of missed one thing that actually happened during the mastering of our release, which was that Gibraltar got on grey list of FATF, and we kind of missed the opportunity to talk about this. I think we need to take more attention of our audience to talk about this a bit, at least just maybe for 10 minutes or something. So Soroush, what do you think about this? What is going on right now in Gibraltar? Is there mass hysteria there? Panic attacks? Maybe financial companies are leaving the territory right now? What is going on?
No, nothing too bad, nothing doom and gloom. So for anyone who's unfamiliar, FATF, Moneyball, they do evaluation of countries, and they basically determine which countries have got poor controls or effectiveness when it comes to money laundering. Gibraltar has just been put onto the grey list for two main issues. One was in relation to supervision of non-bank financial institutions. Mm-hmm. This internally, everyone very much suspects is largely about kind of one main sector, which is the gambling sector, which is quite big. And secondly, that it is actively and successfully pursuing final confiscation judgments through criminal or civil proceedings after the financial investigations have concluded. This was one of the exact problems that Malta had, for example, which has on this round of review come off the grey list. But it is quite difficult to establish, and Malta did have to go through quite a lot of sort of doing a lot to financially penalize non-performers or where they do find weaknesses, and issuing a lot of administrative fines and doing significant investigations, some of which we were involved with, to be able to demonstrate that back to the FATF.
So what do you think would be the immediate consequences of this situation for the companies that are working from Gibraltar and for the companies that are working with the companies that are working from Gibraltar?
First off, in terms of the immediate impact, well, the IMF did a little study, and it's public information, that they estimate that grey listing has about a 7.6% GDP impact for a country on capital inflow, which means that for Gibraltar, with its GDP of roughly 2.5 billion, that comes to close to about 200 million or 185 to 200 million pound or dollar impact, pound impact in a single year. That is quite a significant impact that it's going to have on the GDP inflow of the country. Does it mean that people are going to be leaving? No, because you don't often leave once you have settled your organization, your roots, your infrastructure, whatever you have, you're not going to immediately leave. You still have the same benefits of why you set up in Gibraltar. It's a tax efficient jurisdiction. It's English speaking. You've got a lot of the regulatory infrastructures that are in place. So you're not going to leave, but it's going to make it a lot more difficult for people to come in, and it's going to be a lot less likely for people to come into the jurisdiction. And that's where the risk is.
Will it affect, Soroush, in your opinion, will it affect some other industries that have not been specifically addressed by the FATF in this evaluation, such as, for example, crypto and some other areas? I don't know, maybe FX or something like that, because of this grey listing?
So unofficially, there were two sectors that I haven't seen the action plan. I could caveat that most of this is either public information or internal kind of discussions that happens in Gibraltar. Everyone suspects and everyone talks about two specific sectors that have let the jurisdiction down. One was the gaming sector, and one is in respect of lawyers and trust and corporate service providers who are perhaps not doing enough. But is it going to impact the financial sector? Of course it is. Not as much, because that is not the key focus that FATF identified weaknesses, but where the commentary is about actually identifying and providing financial sanctions, that's a specific comment on the FIU, that the FIU needs to be doing more to issue. So FIU is going to have to clamp down on some of the other areas as well, even though that wasn't FATF's specific concern. Because again, this in every one of these things, there's the expression is that a lot of horse trading that goes on. You need to also sometimes go above and beyond to be able to come off a grey list. You can't just say, well, I'm doing the bare minimum will stop you getting on the grey list, but now that you want to come off it, you have to go a little bit further. We talked about this last time. Gibraltar is trying to very much put itself as a crypto jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. How much is this going to hinder it? Who knows?
So there are other two important lists that exist apart from the FATF grey list, which is the EU and the UK lists of high-risk jurisdictions. So the Gibraltar's situation is special, I guess, because Gibraltar is a UK territory, and at the same time it's located around the EU member states, and of course has great connections, economic connections with the EU. So how do you think in this situation will the EU and the UK add Gibraltar on their list of high-risk jurisdictions?
UK, unlikely. For people who are actually very interested, Gibraltar does have a very unique position because it is not a crown dependency, it's an offshore territory. So technically speaking, an assessment of Gibraltar is first and foremost an assessment of the UK. Whereas some of the other offshore jurisdictions like Jersey, Guernsey, again, this is a minor technicality that when you get into, and we were having some earlier conversation a few weeks ago about how to assess country risk. This is one of the most complicated bits of it. So I don't think UK is going to have too much of an issue with Gibraltar. And I don't think, again, some of it does become a little bit about politics. EU is a very difficult question. And it's a good question. And again, politics does come into it. So if EU adds Gibraltar to its list of high-risk countries in the middle of Schengen negotiations, because Gibraltar has been negotiating with Spain and with the EU, with the UK and the other side as well, to kind of agree how they... I'm going to say if Gibraltar is able to get out of grey listing within 12 months, and it looks like it is moving in that direction at any point in the future, then I don't think EU would add Gibraltar to its high-risk country list. More than 12 months, and you're risking it.
In terms of, so we have several jurisdictions that kind of like, in my opinion, kind of like we're going side by side in international financial relations, such as Gibraltar, Malta, Cyprus, United Arab Emirates, maybe you name it, some other places that also kind of like had the same place in international finance. So right now, Malta is out of grey list, or Gibraltar is in grey list, Cyprus is out and has always been out. Emirates are in the list. United Arab Emirates. So, how do you think this situation, how it will change the, I would say, the international division of power in terms of let's say these jurisdictions that I have mentioned? Which countries will benefit from this situation? Where the money will go? Where the crypto companies will go, where like what will be in general, what will be the change in international finance because of this situation?
Crypto is a difficult question. I'll come to that last. But in terms of who would benefit and who would not benefit, so first off, the reason UAE is I'm surprised the UAE hasn't come out of the grey listing yet. Because I would have thought they would be very much interested in coming out of it quicker. However, UAE also has a lot more financial power because it is not reliant on its specific sectors like financial services to be able to survive. So it has got a slightly different impetus to move. There's a lot of money that is potentially illicit that is moved, fine, you're going to get 7% less inflow from the more reputable jurisdictions, perhaps, or more reputable jurisdictions. But anyway, UAE aside, Cyprus, Gibraltar, Malta, you're right, they occupy very much the same space. Gibraltar getting grey listed and Malta coming out of it, that is the most obvious link. English-speaking, mainland Europe, relatively well-regulated infrastructure. Cyprus may be benefiting from this, but it's a little bit further afield. And also Cyprus has got that historic ties with Russia that a lot of people still have a bit of an aversion to moving towards unless. So the biggest net benefiter from Gibraltar getting grey listed, 99% likelihood it's going to be Malta.
So now the question will be, what recommendations do you have as a person, especially as a lawyer practicing in Gibraltar in the area of money laundering and anti-money laundering and financial crime investigations and compliance? What recommendations do you have for companies that are working right now with Gibraltar, in Gibraltar, to stay, to wait for a year, if they are getting into Gibraltar, stop doing this, not opening a bank account in Gibraltar, not setting up a company in Gibraltar for a year or something? What would be your recommendation?
I live in Gibraltar. I have to see everyone every day, and it's a small place. So I do see some of the key players who are involved in a lot of things on a daily basis. And therefore, I would certainly welcome and encourage everyone to move their companies and their assets and their investments to Gibraltar. But if I had to give two messages widely, it would be, first off, directed at Gibraltar-based financial institutions, companies, anyone who's currently operating in Gibraltar with a more global footprint. Grey listing will mean that you will end up facing difficulties. Whether you're a bank and you're going to have to deal with correspondents who are going to ask a lot more questions, whether you're a gaming firm or an insurance company who now is trying to send money to any jurisdiction, but because you're based in Gibraltar, you're now going to be a higher risk institution, and therefore you're going to get asked a lot more questions about your transactional activity. So it's potentially going to need, sort of a lot of the jurisdiction is going to need more compliance type officers to be able to handle that extra workload. So that's one half of it. The other half is Gibraltar as a jurisdiction. Lessons learned from Malta. I don't think I'm breaking any sort of secrets to say Malta did a lot of things, and sometimes went above and beyond by issuing fines left, right, and center. Right now, I've heard from more than 2 or 3 different clients of mine who have got operations in Malta as well as in other jurisdictions saying we were getting visits from the MFSA and the FIU. Sometimes one comes in before they're even out the door, the next visit comes in on the same exact subject matter because you've got 2 different bodies that are investigating the same bit and piece. So they did quite a lot, and they spent a lot of money on it to be able to come out of it knowing full well the benefits. So Gibraltar government, if I had to give one suggestion, I am giving it externally. It's sort of more, if anyone's watching, that is, bring in the professionals, whether it's us or someone else. We've got the benefit of David Lewis, is the former head of FATF. The guy who actually grey listed Malta at the time is now an employee of Kroll. So he can probably say a few stories that are not a public debate or public forum on how to get out of a grey listing. But it needs to happen soon. The longer it takes, the more likely it is that Gibraltar will have a significant impact on its GDP.
Thank you very much, Soroush, for your insights. I think they will be very interesting for the audience. And take care.
Well, look forward to the next one, and I hope it's not going to be so quick, because by the time we finished recording that one and it came out, Gibraltar got grey listed. And as much as I've heard some rumors, I'm hoping that it's not going to happen again, that by the time this one comes out, some other disaster befalls us. So